magnificent afternoon. I knew I missed something during the day. I missed the middle part. This is Carla with MindPlore with Carla and Friends. And guess what? We are going to be talking about friendship, but the many phases of friendship or the many flavors of friendship. Because friendship can mean different things to different people. And if we take friendship and we give it its full value, does it start within in our soul and we're looking for certain people or that we don't know it? Or is it something that happens outside of us? We're going to talk about it today, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation. I have 3 wonderful ladies with me. I have Dr. Michelle from California, very international show. I'm from the US. We have Rubina, who is originally from Pakistan, and I think she said Lahore, but she's in Toronto, California.
California.
Toronto, Canada now. And we have Shivali from India near New Delhi. And although we have never met physically, on screen we have met, and we are finding that as we keep on talking, we have a lot of things in common, and we enjoy speaking with each other. I hope I'm talking for myself, but I'm hoping I'm including all of us. And we're going to talk about what is friendship. Do we need to be close by and see each other physically all the time? Or is friendship something more within our souls and within our hearts? Having said that, Shivali, what do you have to say? Introduce yourself for someone, maybe someone who doesn't know who you are.
Okay. Thank you, Carla. And hi, Michelle and Rubina and all the friends who are watching us. I am from Delhi NCR, that is New Delhi side of India. And I've been a professional coach and trainer, as well as I'm a holistic healer. And today's topic is flavors of friendship. My earliest memories of friendship is my association with cats. Believe me, from a very childhood, as far as I,
Yes.
pardon?
Cats, as in cats, the 4-legged creatures?
Yes. And my mother can vouch for this. Yes, that's why I got attracted to Krishna also. Uh, so from childhood, I used to be fascinated by these little kittens and cats, and I would actually, kind of not steal. We couldn't call, but the milk of the house would disappear. The bread would disappear, and my mother one fine day she discovered where all the milk was going, and she would say, "Why are you wasting the bread? They will just suck the milk, and the bread will be left." So whatever. So my earliest association has been with animals, especially cats. I was very scared of dogs in the initial years of my life. I don't know why, but cats I was attracted, and I was very much attracted by nature. So nature really attracted me. I would speak about clouds, the sky, and ask a lot of questions. So my earliest memories would be my association with animals, even plants. I still talk to my plants, but I've been doing this for years now. And the joy that I would receive just by being in, their company and speaking to them is something which I get to, find in something else, I can say. So that was my earlier association of friendship. And here, once again, I just cannot help this. I was brought up in a family where there was a lot of reference to spirituality, to religion, and to God. And receiving my convent education, so it was strengthened all the more. So, God also, I always knew that He's my friend. And whenever I was scolded for something, I would actually do self talk. So that's the way I looked at friendship in the earlier formative years. And of course, then going to school and having childhood buddies. So friendship is something which is natural. We cannot be alone, whether we are reaching out to nature, fauna, flora, or human beings, whatever it is. So friendship is something which is an integral part of the human being, and I think the entire living world.
Okay. Can you give me, you talked about cats, you talked about plants. Give me an example of how you see a friendship.
Friendship is something where even if I am very silent, that silence is very comfortable between me and that friend. The silence itself is so comfortable. I think there is no need for speech. Normally, what happens in general, our relationships, we need to talk to each other all the time. But there are moments in our life, if I were friends with someone, that friend would understand my silence, would be completely comfortable with it, and I with his or her silence. So for me, a friend is someone who is totally in the situation with me. If I'm silent, then also it's fine. There's no judgment. So for me, the silence is also understood by my friend without me saying anything. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. So, and also, when you're talking about silence being a major part of friendship, would you consider that more of a soul connection and spiritual, or a worldly connection?
It is a spiritual connection. It is very much a soul connection. But what happens that as we are growing up, our logic is becoming so strong, and too many do's and don'ts. Gradually, we become a part of this material world around us. So even though the spiritual element is existing, it has to. Yet we might, what should I say, become little oblivious at times of that spiritual aspect and get caught up in the, the external. But there will be moments, I'm sure all of you will agree with this. There are moments, even when you're caught up in your daily life and the external, there are moments of silence when you are silent with yourself also. That is the time you understand that you are a spiritual being. And that's how, that time, the whole world around you also appears very spiritual. The same world. It's our own perception, that experience that is creating the external. This is what I strongly believe and I've experienced and I do experience. So it is both. We have to live in the material world. We cannot ignore it. Yet, if we know that we are, what is our true identity? Our true identity is we are spirit souls. And this external thing is also a creation of ours. It's created by God Himself. So that interaction has to be there. But to remember that we are essentially souls is very important if we really want to make true friends in our lives, where we can connect with each other without judgment, without any kind of inhibition. We can reach out. So therefore, it is a soul connect. Without any kind of inhibition, we can reach out.
Okay. What do you think, Dr. Michelle?
I thought that was very interesting, the repetition of the word after her words again, almost like some spiritual being came in to remind us about the importance of spiritual connection. That was the first thing I thought of. The other thing I was thinking about was that we are spiritual beings and we come into these bodies, and these bodies are wired to bond with other human beings. That is, on the animal plane, we are a communal species, and we survive better in community. In fact, centuries ago, the biggest punishment was for you to be banished from your community, because you would die. You would not be able to survive. So this is wired into us. And from the earliest moments of our birth, we are relating to our parents and the people around us. And if we get the support and love that we need, and the safety, all the things that we need to survive, then we do well. And then we can reach out into the world and make friends. And it's on an even plane. It isn't in it from a place of desperation or hunger or longing. But the reality is most of us have some kind of trauma in our childhood, because being a parent is a really difficult job. Not to mention, if you look at your parents' childhoods, they were probably worse than yours were. So you develop these longings and these habits that helped you to survive your childhood, and it colors your relationship with other people. That having been said, what are you comfortable with? Who feels right to you? And I think on a certain level, it's human, it's material, it's biological. But on another level, I think it is soul. That is, that before we were born, maybe we made a soul agreement with another soul that said, we're going to meet up in life because we have some things that we need to work out or figure out or understand. And so I find it helpful to look at both, why am I attracted to this person? How is this helping me to grow? And how is it helping me spiritually? And so sometimes I have relationships with people that drive me crazy. And yet there is something that keeps on drawing me back. Am I drawn back to this person because she reminds me of somebody? Or is it a soul connection?
Yes, Michelle, I think I can relate to it. These are also karmic connections coming from our past life. And that is why, in this life, sometimes we meet people and we feel we know them, earlier also we have known them. We are all interconnected, and it is not just in one lifetime. It's happening from one life to another life to another life. That's how the entire thing is connected. But only thing is that, either we don't believe in it. There are many who don't believe in these things also. They don't agree to this. But at the end of the month, you start experiencing things, you realize that it's true.
Well, I think it makes life more interesting when you think of it in those ways, because then you start to see these synchronicities. You start to see the pattern. And if you think everything is random, then you don't see the pattern. But if you expect a pattern, you see the pattern. And therefore, we have contracts, or we make connections with people. And there's something, if you really look for the gold in the relationships and focus on that rather than the inconveniences, because sometimes there are inconveniences. I think there was a singer who said, sandpaper makes the wood grain free. So sometimes when there's friction between us and our significant other or our friends, that this is something that somehow refines us.
It's like a polishing which is taking place.
Yes. So to look at your friendships and say, well, what am I learning here? And sometimes you need to walk away from a friendship because it becomes too toxic. And maybe that's the lesson. You don't know until you explore it, until you're curious. So I look at, both the psychological or emotional level of, oh, I'm attracted to this person because she reminds me of my mother or my father. But also, as you say, what is the soul connection? How is this refining my spirit?
But when you say that, or you're putting so much emphasis in understanding it, are you actually losing what it's all about? Because you think, I want this and I want that and blah, blah, blah. Is it a soul relationship? Is it whatever?
These are musings in the early morning hours when I'm writing my journal. It's in the moment. I'm in the moment of that person. But for example, Carla, sometimes you really insult me. And yet I keep on coming back to you because there's something there, right? So I know that I irritate you. So there's something there that you keep on calling me back. So I'm like, okay, what's there? So that, I think, is where the thinking comes from, is when there is that friction, what is that about? And when there are these differences. So I'm married to a man who doesn't speak a lot. And I talk up a storm. And I actually need that conversation. I need the verbal, because that's the kind of, that's my astrology. That's who I am. I have learned to be more tolerant, like Shivali says, of the silences. And I've done a lot of spiritual work to get there. So that's what I understand, is that the curiosity does not get me in trouble with experiencing and enjoying the moment of my friendship. But later on, if there's something that comes up for me, I examine it. I'm curious.
Michelle, if I've ever insulted you, I really feel badly about it now. Can we talk about that offline at some point?
Sure.
It wasn't my intention.
People are people, and there's things that irritate some people that will not even irritate another person. It has to do with personality. Don't worry about it,
Okay. Rubina, you've been very quiet. The other three ladies, including myself, have been very noisy. I want to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Carla. Actually, this whole conversation was so interesting, and I was just thinking deeply or everything that Shivali was talking about the spiritual aspects, and we are physical bodies as well. And then Michelle was talking about, and Michelle talked about, like, sometimes friendships, they're toxic, and we have to move away from that person. And it just reminds me of my personal experience last year, that with a person that to me, it's when she mentioned the word toxic to me, when I thought about it, it was like, when you eat almonds, I don't know here in North America, but back home, we have those organic almonds. So every 6 to 8 almonds, we get one bitter almond. So that friendship to me, Shivali is laughing. Shivali was not.
The bitter almond.
And that bitter almond.
I used to hate those bitter almonds.
How they give a bad taste to your mouth, like you're enjoying those good ones, and all of a sudden you eat one bitter one, and then you're like, you run to the washroom and you just gargle or whatever, and then you become more careful. Like what I do is like eating very carefully, a little one, and then eating. So same is with the friendships. Once in a while it happens. And when I read about this topic, it was complete new to me. Like flavors of friendships, I was surprised at how come friendship having flavors. But when I started thinking about it, so many things started coming. Yes, there are friends who are lifelong friends. There are friends who we can say as close friends. Then there are friends. There's so many friends in our social media, on social media sites, like Facebook list is full of friends. There are people I never met, and I don't think that I will meet them any time in my life, but they are on my friend list. So yes, there are so many flavors to the friendship. But when I talk about myself, like Shivali talked about herself from her childhood, I can relate so many things with what she talked about, not the cats, but talking to the plants. I'm kind of like allergic to or scared or allergic, whatever. I was attacked by a stray dog once, and since then, so talking to the plants, I can relate so much with Shivali over that. I talk to plants, especially when I feel sad. I feel that I need someone or something that I can just say. I wanted to say everything, and I feel that I cannot do it with human beings. I do it with God. I feel God as my best friend, and then self-talk. So I do a lot of self-talk. When I feel that no one will be able to understand what I want to share, then I do a lot of self-talk, and that is the spiritual aspect of myself and everyone, all the human beings. But there are questions coming to my mind. Maybe Dr. Michelle would be able to answer it. Is it like these flavors of friendships or the kind of friendships we have, is it, does that have something to do with our personalities, like our psychologies? Like some people, they are introverts, some people, they are extroverts, and introverts are more towards I feel that they're more towards their spiritual side. Or maybe they look like they're more towards because they're introverts, they spend more time with themselves. uh, uh, as compared to the extroverts, they're more social. They want to spend more time with people. They is there something that we can
Well, I think that definitely there is that soul connection, but I also think that opposites sometimes attract. That it's often that we are attracted to people who have another characteristic that maybe we need to learn some of. For example, I am an early riser. I am a fast person. I make decisions quickly and I move quickly. And my husband is slow as molasses in January. And I'm like, I'm ready to go. Where are you? And I've learned to slow down. I've learned to take on other tasks before we go somewhere, because we're always going to be late, and it's just the way it is. And I just build that in. But at the same time, I know it's useful for me to learn to slow down, to not be so fast, and to learn from him. And at the same time, he can learn from me. He can learn a lot. My mind that works a mile a minute, I have a lot of good ideas. And so he learns to listen to me. So we help each other. And the other thing I want to talk about, the flavors, is that in my own scheme of understanding human relationships, is that we have a lot of connections, associations, and then there are people that we bond with. And the relationship we have with the people we bond with is different. It's qualitatively deeper. These are the people that maybe you feel comfortable sharing your most intimate thoughts with, that you talk about difficult subjects with. And you may not do that with associates. And the thing is that you get your bonding partners from your associates, because sometimes you have to start with that. And then, of course, you may have intimate relationships with your family, but that depends on your family. I know that for many years, my best friend was my sister. She was the person that was the sun and moon to me. And we were very, very closely bonded. And then as we grew older, that our relationship spread out. But that early bonding is still there at the core of our relationship.
So yes, you're right. And to me, it's also something about values, how much your values are. When we talk about from the spiritual aspect, it's about like we say that how much your energy is a match with the person you're with or your friend with. But when we talk about it with from the physical body's point of view, a worldly point of view, it's about our moral and ethical values, that how close those values are a match with other people. So more close or more match it is with the other person, it defines our friendship with that person. That's how I also feel about friendship.
But then there's this issue with if your friends are dinner partner friends, that is, you go out, you share food with them, you might want to have people that somewhat share your palate, because otherwise you're constantly making these different kinds of food for them and for you. It's kind of, this is just a little bit of a joke, but it's like if you're spending a lot of dinner meals with your friends, maybe you ought to consider what their dietary restrictions are.
But I don't know if that, I may be wrong in saying this, and Michelle, I don't know if it's having the same dietary restrictions as it is accepting people as they are. If a bank robber would come into the show and say, I want to create friendships, and then he tells me that he's a bank robber, and I probably want to hide a little because I'd be concerned of the quality of this person. And that would be wrong of me in a way, because I'm not being open to what that person is saying in his total essence. You know, I guess what I'm saying is we sometimes judge people, and we judge them wrongly because we're so in our minds have decided this type of person I don't want to be my friend. And one of the things that I learned very early from Rehan, because he connected me with a very distinct personality from me, who was a Republican and wanted me to become a Republican. And Rehan said, just listen to him. Don't talk to him. You probably will end up in conflict. But if we listen to different people, those people really can become our friends. Does that, I don't know if what I said.
Yeah, no, it's a whole different topic, and that's fine. And mine was said rather lightheartedly because I think we might want to also look at those things. Yes, I think values are important for close friendships. But if we want to have community, if we want to be able to relate to the other people in this world, we have to have curiosity, and we have to be willing to open up to other ideas. So I had a recent experience with that last week because I'm coaching a Toastmasters club, and I'm a coach, and I wanted to bring in a second coach to help me because there's a lot of work to do. And they were very resistant. And I couldn't understand that. Well, this was like an extra pair of helping hands. Why would you not want that? Because I didn't really understand their culture and how they felt like sometimes they get overrun by people like me, or that maybe they don't see the possibilities I see, because I always see the possibilities. I'm that cup half full kind of gal. And maybe they've gone through experiences in which the possibilities are not really there because they've been denied. And so that's a very different orientation. And to learn to have compassion for people who have different life experiences, and to be curious and want to know more about that so that we can relate.
I like that. What do you think, Rubina?
Yeah, I have a question to you both, Carla and Michelle. Like Carla talked about becoming friend with a bank robber. So where does that self-care, like our boundaries for our own self-care, like we can get affected by the person we spend time with? And there's this famous saying that how to put it in English, I don't know, like you get recognized or identified with the friends you're having around you, right? So a man is by the company you keep. Where does that the boundaries, like if we want to, like, yes, we want to learn the experiences and so much from even a bank robber, or even the most toxic person over this planet Earth. And we learn, actually. When I was talking about my personal experience last year with that bitter friendship, that bitter almond I was talking about, I learned more from that person, so many big, great lessons than I have learned throughout my year from my best friends or the good people in my life. That is true. But then where is self-care? Then we have to take care of our own self. Like at the end, last year, it took me months to, I practiced forgiveness for months for that person, for my own self. And then now I feel myself at peace. Like, I feel like, yes, I have forgiven that person, and I have forgiven what as a reaction I did to myself. So where that self-care and those all boundaries would lie, if we want to have friendship with such people and we want to learn, but then self-care is more important.
Rubina, I was reminded of this person. I think it was Bacon, if I remember correctly. Bacon mentions about books, where he says some books are to be eaten, some to be chewed, and some to be digested. So friends are also like that. And when we're talking about toxic relations, or not so good enough relations, whatever you want to call it, there's something called discretion and wisdom also. We just can't blindly step into things. I strongly believe in this. And in relationships and friendship, it's not about judgment here, but one, of course, has to use his wisdom also. Uh, that is something which is coming to my mind, and that is the meaning of flavors also. There'll be some who are coming to teach you certain lessons, and as you pointed out, that toxic relationships that we were talking about, relationships which they appear toxic, yes, they are harming you, but then they are teaching you your life's lesson, or maybe your soul is meant to learn those lessons so that you can move on in life also. So it's about personal choices, and it's also about the situation. So a choice which we have to make. Ultimately, we have been asked to make a choice. And how we'll go about doing it would vary from person to person and depending on the situation. So here it is not about judgment. It's about using your discretion. This is what I feel.
Yes, you're right. Actually, these people, they are the difficult people in our life are like resistance, and resistance comes not to fall down, but to rise above or high, to progress further and to in your life. But only if we are wise enough to think about it that way in that moment. And when we talk about judgment, is it I feel that judgment is when we meet someone the first time and we start thinking about that person, and what that person is wearing, how she's talking or doing, but if something happens to us, if that person does something to us, then don't we have the right to analyze it, to judge it, that what has happened, and yes, the person did something wrong or bad to us. Is that also going to be categorized as judgment? When we spend some time, we become friends, and then something happens to us, not the first time we meet someone.
Well, I'd like to respond to that, Rubina, which is, well,
Please, yes.
how do we judge this? Well, you can judge it and push it away, resist that experience, or you can get curious. And if you have that spiritual mindset, you assume that everybody you come in contact with that impacts on you has some message to give you, whether it's for you to become more protective of yourself, or it's to become more open or more curious about other cultures, that there is some wisdom to be had. And then you don't get too caught up in judging people. But hey, we do. Like, what was it? I was reading a Facebook post, and this woman was walking late at night, coming home from somewhere, and she sees this guy who's kind of a little weird on the street. And she says hello, and he starts stalking her and asking her questions and catcalling and all this sort of stuff. And she manages to get home in time not to have, anything bad happen to her. And I said, well, I lived in New York City. And in New York City, you do not engage with crazy people. You walk to the other side of the street. And if you were on the subway and there's a crazy person, you blend in with the background of the subway. You literally become like a chameleon, and you become the color of the wall. And I have seen a whole subway train in which everybody did that when this crazy person was walking around. So that, I guess, is sometimes you just know, and you have to pay attention to that intuition that this person, you don't need this person in your life. And how you feel is a good indication. And you don't have to judge them in terms of they're bad. I mean, maybe they're crazy. Maybe they had some trauma, and you can send them compassion, but you don't need to put yourself at risk.
You are right. It's actually we all have, and they have that trauma that is making them to do those things. If we think about it in a deep way, and we try to analyze from what they are doing, from their behaviors, about a little bit about their childhood, we try to analyze about it. If we find out that yes, they had some previous past trauma, that's why they're behaving that way. But yes, we have to think about ourselves first. Self-care is more important than being compassionate for, and especially if the other person we feel and we find out that is so tough that we cannot, our compassion, our empathy is not going to change that person.
Well, changing people is very hard.
Well, I don't
Yes,
know.
not changing. Actually, we have to use the word that we can impact them.
Impact them, yes.
I believe we impact everyone we meet. Whether the impact is really powerful for that person, or if it's a tiny thing to put him or her on the path that we're going. So I don't think, and this is my own feeling, and I do it myself, I'll judge a person and say, oh, that person isn't good for this, or that person is good for that. And someone will come to me and say, why didn't you try this person on MindPlore? And my first reaction will be, ew, you're kidding. And they say, no, I'm not kidding. Check them out. And I interview the person, and I find the person to at least be able to speak and speak about values and to have some knowledge of them. Should I be allowing that person into the show? I say yes. Because if we're impacting one person in one direction, we're moving them towards goodness. I think I reflect goodness, not craziness. Well, probably some craziness. But what do you think about that? And I don't mean to change the subject, but I think it's also a part of the subject. When we begin to judge, it doesn't take us very far, does it? Rubina, I'm going to make
my question is again there, that I'm not going, if it's I'm not good enough, like Carla is dealing with the whatever is happening to me. If I'm not that good, like I have to make my boundaries somewhere where if my own behavior, my own life is going to get affected, then I have to make some boundaries where I have to keep that person like away, or I have to keep myself away from that place or that person. That's how I think about it. Because I'm not I'm not a Sufi or a saint or a monk, or I'm not Carla. So
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not a saint either. I have someone on the English show who is absolutely driving me crazy. I told the person not to come back for a week. He came back the next day. So I said 2 weeks. Now it's months during the months away. Because if I don't get that break, I am going to be very rude to the person. And I know that. And yet he tries every day to come. I'm not perfect. Please don't give me that.
so that's what I'm talking about, like making at least some boundaries
Right.
for ourselves and for the other person. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, Rubina, the boundary thing is absolutely, that's why they say don't build walls, but have healthy boundaries. Because self-care, self-love is also important. We have covered this point earlier. So in friendship, we have to understand friendships are also a sort of relationship, right? So every relationship, including a friendship, you know, requires healthy boundaries. That is very much, if anything which is being very negative, it's teaching us lessons. So lessons is one aspect. The other aspect is that you need to keep your distance that time. You don't, it's not like saying, okay, you slap me on this cheek, now you slap me on the other.
On the other, yeah.
It doesn't happen that way, because a self-nurturing, self-love, that is also important. It should not be a trauma, right? Something very serious, something which is hurting you. It's a various aspects. And of course, having that compassion for the other person, and the forgiveness, compassion, these are also some of the words we have used last time while we were discussing. So healthy boundaries is very much essential. And who will create it? It is the individual himself or herself who creates it. That's why I say it's a choice. You have to use your discretion, you have to use your wisdom. And yes, if you connect at the soul level, that time you begin to understand what is forgiveness and what is compassion. Then you try to understand that the person is doing this as a result of something. But at the same time, you will keep your distance also. You will have compassion. So if a person has hurt you, uh, a, a person like me, I have done this and I still do it. I pray for that person also. I pray for that person. It's so important. And it's very difficult, let me tell you, in the initial years of my working on myself, it was like, I can't do this. I can't forgive, or I can't pray for this person. But the gradual realization comes, this is coming at the spiritual level, that I need to pray for that person, and that's a big thing then. So you can keep your boundaries, you can keep your distance. You may not even talk to that person. At the same time, having compassion for that person, you will keep him in your daily prayers, asking for grace, for mercy, justice for yourself, as well as for the other people around you, who may not be, the way you want them to.
And sometimes, Shivali, to do that, to be empathetic, to be compassionate about that person, to forgive that person, we have to create that distance from that person. Because keeping us close to that person is continuously hurting us, and we're not able to forgive him or her. So it's to keep a distance from that person is a way like that would lead us towards forgiveness and towards praying for that person, and to sending best wishes and love spiritually.
You have to start, though, with knowing inside that you need to stay away. And some people have a difficult time recognizing what they're feeling. I mean, I don't know if you have that problem, but I had for a long time because I used to repress my feelings. So having that awareness, using the body as the barometer of what works and what doesn't. If this person makes you angry, or you find yourself complaining all the time, that might be a sign that that's not a person that works for you. But learning to check in. And if you do that on a regular basis, then gradually, little by little, you start to have that wisdom so that you don't have to go away for 3 days to figure out that this person is actually a bitter almond. And to have compassion if it does take you time to realize that this person is a bitter almond.
Yeah, so Michelle, you talked about like realizing or understanding, and so that is one of the lessons that I learned from that past experience, this experience, that how to listen to your heart or your intuition. Before that, I just read about it. Listen to your heart. Heart does not lie. It's always whatever it says is truth. And from this experience with this person, I learned that what is the language of the heart and how it tries to tell you that there is something wrong, there is something that is not right. And the heart's language is in the way of feelings. You feel that something is not right, and something is not a good match with yours, and something is wrong with whatever is happening. So I learned this, the language of the heart, I learned with this experience. And this is one of the big lessons I learned from that experience.
And a good lesson it is, powerful.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
You could have a lot of gratitude for that lesson, for sure.
Yes, I do.
But we also need to keep in mind, although we may be connected, we're all at different levels on our path. And someone could be on step 1, someone could be on step 4, and someone could be on step 10. We don't even know what level we're on. But if we allow ourselves to learn from each other, that's what is most important. I'm not a saint in any form, Rubina. Trust me, I'm not. But, I say what I need to say at the time, and what I may say to you may be totally different from what I would say to Shivali or Michelle or someone I meet on the street. So, who knows where I am on the ladder of growth? I could be way down at step 1. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're moving forward regardless.
Well, Carla, I think you make a good point that we can be on various steps on the journey or various levels of evolution. And yet, anybody, anywhere on that journey might have some message or some lesson for you to learn. And not to have that kind of judgment. For example, Rubina's story about this almond, bitter almond woman who taught her a very, very important lesson. And it's painful. And it's when it's painful that it has its biggest impact, is when it just really, it's hard to get over. That's when you remember. So yeah, as my spiritual teacher used to say, who came from Iraq, that an old Sufi saying is that you can learn from a dog. That's true. In fact, you could probably learn a lot from a dog, but that we can learn from anybody, from a baby, if we're open to the learning, the lesson that's there.
We could learn from a cat.
Or a cat, yes. Is your cat there?
Actually, she's right here.
Yeah, I thought she was hanging around. She's like, yeah, I'm a friend.
Cat. He's the crazier of the two. But you learn from this. I mean, Krishna is a very determined cat. I'll tell you a story about him. And when he wants my attention, he makes it loud and clear. He does it very quietly in the beginning. He may come to my bed and I'll be laying down and he'll pat my face. And I'm like, leave me alone. So he pats it again and he keeps on patting it. And if I don't give him what he wants, when he wants it, I'll hear, meow. A few minutes, and I'm still ignoring it, it'll become, meow. And eventually, with the real loud, yow, I will pay attention to him because
Absolutely.
I have no choice but to pay attention, and he makes it known. And I think this is true in all relationships and in all friendships. We may ignore a friendship, ignore someone and not want to talk to them for a while, but they'll make themselves known anyway.
They will indeed.
Whether we want to hear from them or not, they're going to go, yow! And you're like, oh, please go away. When I go to feed this cat, he's not only on the sink, he is waiting, he's bugging me. Hurry up, get that food in the dish and in the kitty playpen. I want to eat. And if I don't get it to him quick enough, he will begin to attempt to eat from one of the bowls. And I remind him, you're not allowed. Ew! He makes it known. Rubina, your reaction was so funny.
Yes, you're right. So Michelle was talking about, and you were talking about that we all are at different levels. And if someone else is at a different level and I'm at a different, then I don't have to, there's no need to judge that person. And there's no need to judge even myself. All I need in those moments is to realize what is, like you're talking about that person that you are not allowing that person to come to the show. So we have to just, for the time being or in the long run, we have to think about making some specific, like certain boundaries for ourselves and for those people. And we can keep friendships, although it'll be a different kind of friendship with some people. It will be different with some others. With some people, they don't need to. We don't need to realize them, and they are the true best friends. We don't even talk to. Like, I have a friend, I don't even talk to her for months sometimes, and we don't care if who is going to do the first text. We don't care about it. When whoever does that, we know that there's this soul connection between us, and we don't mind being not talking to each other for a few months, and then when we talk, when we sit, it's like going out of time and space. We don't realize that how many hours we are sitting together and we're talking. So yes, there are different kinds of friendships, and there you just have to learn that how to deal with different kinds of people and how to keep those friendships and how to keep yourself and the other person in certain limits and in certain boundaries. It's at the end, I think it's all about being mindful and yeah.
But also realize that the boundaries change in time. I mean, I've had people who I've had on the show often, and for some reason, all of a sudden, they get a little on my nerves. It's not their fault. It's more me. And I'll take a break for maybe a week or two. And it has nothing to do with that person. It has to do with me. So when we judge a person, or in my mind, when I judge a person and I'm being really negative about them, I know it's time for me to look at that quality in myself, because darn it, it is there. and it's shouting at me. So instead of saying that person is bugging me, which I did say on the show, it's more, what is it I am doing that's bugging me? And it may take me a few weeks or months to figure that out. Who knows?
You're right, Carla, and that's what I'm learning. I'm in a process of learning this, that whenever I get irritated from someone, I try to realize myself that it's not that person, it's me. It's up to me, it's my choice. Should I let myself get irritated from that person, or that person does something or did something, let it go. Don't even think about it. If you don't want, if even if you don't want to respond to them or to that person, don't do it, and don't get irritated. That's what I'm learning.
Wonderful. Shivali, you've been too quiet too long.
What I've been listening. Yes, I understand these things because we all experience it. And what was coming to my mind towards the end, as Rubina was speaking, is that this aspect of sometimes two things. Sometimes what happens, you are attracted to people because you find certain qualities which could you look upon or you desire. So that comes reflecting in your world. And sometimes a certain aspect of your own inner self is reflected in the outside world. That's why the mirror thing, the mirror image, the concept of the mirror exists. That whatever you're seeing or witnessing outside is also a reflection of our inner world. So, as Michelle had pointed out long time ago about that pattern, recognizing certain patterns in your life related to relationship, friendship, uh, that is the time when that you need to look within and find out, because some way or the other you will get the answer. And as we also mentioned that your body receives it first, but you have to recognize the sign, and then gradually that internal realization comes. So all these things, I think all of you have covered up very beautifully. So I was really listening.
Yeah, Shivali, you're so right that if something is people we are attracting again and again, a certain kind of type of people in our life, and it's a pattern, then we have to think about ourselves. That is the time then we have to analyze our own self and our own personality, that something is wrong with us. We have to think about that. But if it's happening once in a while, once like in so many years, once a time, like, then I don't think that it's anything what to like to get worried about. There must be the nature or the God wants us to learn some lessons, some big lessons, because to give us some wisdom to progress in our life. That's how I think about it. And you're right that if it's a pattern, we have to look for it, what kind of pattern it is, that what kind of people we are normally and in our routine and again we're attracting towards ourselves.
And your mind can create new experiences. That's the power of the mind. Your mind can create new experiences. That is also there.
Yes, if we learn from the past ones, we're wise enough, and we learn from the past ones. Yes, true.
I wanted to bring up another point, which I don't think we've really focused on much, and that is quantity of time. Some of you had talked about, well, I can see somebody once in a month or 2 months, and the relationship is still there. But when you are developing a relationship, it often needs to be nurtured like a seedling, and it needs attention. And that difference between connection or association and bonding has to do with nurturing that relationship to take it deeper. And it also involves being willing to be more vulnerable and to share more of who you are to take that relationship deeper. And I mean, I run across a lot of people in which they have a difficult time taking that next step to a deeper relationship. And sometimes a lot of contact over time will help to break those barriers. So quantity often has an impact. And I notice this in my work around grief and loss, is that the amount of time that you spend with a person, say, that you've lost, will also oftentimes impact how much you grieve, because so much of your daily life reminds you of that loss. Whereas if you only see them like once a month, you may go for weeks at a time before you remember, oh my gosh, she's not there anymore. So I just wanted to throw that out about the quantity. Of course, quality is important, but even just physical quantity, that being in the same presence with another person, sharing that energetic vibration, the smells, the tactile senses, has a huge impact on this body. That's all I have to say.
True. But I want to add a story, and then we have to think about stopping this. I had a very intense experience last week. On Monday, I got a call from my brother-in-law, who rarely calls me. In fact, I don't even remember the last time he called before last Monday. And he called to tell me that my brother had died. And of course, I was a little shocked because I hadn't spoken to my brother, not because I hadn't reached out, but he kind of kicked me out about 6, 7, maybe even 8 years ago. And I actually did a live about this, saying, while we're alive, we need to be telling those people we love that we love them. And of course, for 7 or 8 years, I don't even remember the last time I spoke to him. I couldn't even say that to him because he would not speak to me. When I found out the news, because I kept on thinking about him in the past few weeks and couldn't figure out why it was so intense, and wondering what's going on. Why am I thinking about him so much? And it was obvious that the connection that we had that was deeper than the physical talking or the mental conversations went a lot deeper than physical contact. And I had a rough time with it, although you would not have thought about it because I hadn't spoken to him. Now, keep in mind, my sister and brother are 9 and 10 years older than me. No one knows what happened to my brother. He left the planet in middle of September, and my sister and I just found out about it a week ago, and no one will tell us anything. But that soul connection, it's still there.
Yeah. And also the childhood history, you grew up with him to a certain extent, and that relationship, that bonding, and I agree, the soul connection is very important. If you're still struggling, which I'm not saying, or you're still sorting it out, one of the ways that I work with my clients with that is to invite them to have a written conversation with that person. Or you can do a mental conversation, but that takes a little more. But you can actually clear up a lot of that stuff that you never cleared up and finish it by doing an active engagement. And you may even get dreams from him.
And I did do that because
good.
And I have been doing that through the years. Why can't we talk? And I have a feeling it had something to do with his wife, because there were all kinds of issues in the family. But still, to realize that I had a connection with him that went deeper than conversation is very intense.
Powerful.
And it was very powerful.
Yeah.
And let's just go around quickly and wrap it up because we are over an hour. And I know some people are getting tired, like those in India. And in California, there may be an appointment coming up. So just wrap up your thoughts about this show very quickly, starting with Shivali.
Thank you, Carla. Yes, I would like to just say what Michelle mentioned. That is a very vital thing. That is nurturing. All relationships, so friendship also, needs to be nurtured. There's nothing called perfection, right? So, but it's also important to express. That is also we've spoken of. Uh, Silence is also there. That is also an aspect of it. But nurturing relationships, of which friendship is a very important aspect, and in all relationships there is an element of friendship, and it requires time to reach out, to make the other. It's like saying my mother, if I say my mother loves me, she's also demonstrating that love also. If I say I love Carla, I need to demonstrate it also. It's important. That's how we human beings understand it. Animals also like it. That's why you're patting the cat or whatever. That physical touch, that tactile spark, everything matters. And that is what it makes it so beautiful and so holistic also, a complete thing. So I think nurturing is something which we really need to remember when we are speaking of friendship. Thank you.
Thank you. And Krishna came to listen to you a little. Now he ran away because I made him come. Okay, Rubina.
Yes, Shivali is so right. And Dr. Michelle, she talked about the giving time, that how much time we have spent, it depends on that. I agree with that. And not just the quantity, how much we shared, like when we are sharing our time, we are sharing ourselves, um, our memories, or so many things. So it also depends on that. And Shivali is so right. Like any other relationship in the world, a friendship, I believe that friendship is also a kind of a two-way traffic. So how much we are giving, how much we are getting, and then yes, we have to. The time comes where, with certain people, with certain friends, we have to decide certain limits and boundaries as well. So yes, at the end, it's all about, all the relationships are about give and take, and but what Shivali said, she summed it up so beautifully.
Michelle.
I loved this conversation. I wouldn't have missed it. It was so interesting. And that whole topic of friendship is so dense, so rich. The soul connection, the psychological connection, the different kinds of connections, the people who give us a difficult time and actually teach us the most. It's so fascinating. And that is what it means to be a human being, is to embrace that and enjoy it and learn from it. Back to you, Carla.
And with that, I think I'll tell you, we're going to have a tremendous team again back here on Thursday. I know who they are. And you guys are going to love them because you've loved them in the past. So I'm going to let you be a little surprised. And there is a great chance that I may have the doctor come back again on Thursday. I don't think she has the time to. But anyway, we will be back on Thursday discussing the many faces of friendship, or whatever it is. And let's wave goodbye. And guys, don't forget, help us out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Giggle Fest University, and you can find all of our shows there. even the English show, my interviews, just come and join. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.